Okay, just because we've been looking at this the whole time, it's a real good one to kind of look at the book of Judges. Obviously, we are a lot past all of this, but this is all the Judges before. If you add it all up, it tells you how long the book of Judges is. Because we also worked out that these last few chapters aren't separate extra years on the end of Judges, they're kind of in between. They're like as this stuff's going on, or just before, or in between the Judges. That's when it's all happening. So, gonna skip past this. Judges 21's got 25 verses. I've got my 3 sections. I've sectioned it out. Guys, it's a messed up chapter again. It's a messed up chapter. So, as usual, if you got questions, put your hand up. We'll try and answer them. Cool thing is we've got a couple extra subscribers on YouTube that have emailed to say how cool this study's been. It's been kind of weird. I've never talked through Judges before. I guess it's the first time teaching through Judges, so it's like reading it, I've read it a fair few times. Teaching through it, it's been weird. What do you think?
It's been intense.
Intense, right?
It's hard to finish.
Yeah.
It itself is intense.
Yeah, it is. So section 1, a curse. First 3 verses says this: Now the men of Israel had sworn in Mizpah, saying, they shall not any of us give his daughter unto Benjamin to wife. And the people came to the house of God and abode there till even before God, and lifted up their voices and wept sore, and said, O Lord God of Israel, why is this come to pass in Israel, that there should be to one day one tribe lacking in Israel? Why is there one tribe lacking in Israel? Well, you just said you're not going to marry. Yeah, you guys know. So we're tagging on from last chapter, right? There's been a huge slaughter of the tribe of Benjamin at the hands of the other tribes of Israel. Okay. And then this is all in response to chapter 20 is in response to chapter 19, the crimes that happened in Gibeah. So it's like 3 chapters all based around one horrific thing. Okay, that concubine being raped and sexually abused, being dying, and then being quartered and shot across all the tribe areas so they all knew what happened. They all come together, the big slaughter happens, and it's just brutal. So now we have the survival of the tribe of Benjamin. It's at stake, and there's been this vow to not allow any of the daughters of the 11 tribes to marry a Benjamite. The tribe of Benjamin are threatened with extinction. They're clinging on, and now there's a plan. So this plan, section 1, it's kind of starting off with a curse first, because we realized that as they were doing war, as they were slaughtering, as they were doing this, there was this vow said at Mizpah that we're not going to, even after all of this, we're going to kill everyone. And then just to go on top of that and go a little bit more extreme, we're going to kill everyone and we're going to make sure you can't be around because we're not going to allow our daughters to marry your sons. It's pretty aggressive. That's one way to make a tribe die out, right? No more birth, no more marriage, no more families, kill them all, let them slowly just wheel out, and then you're gone, okay? So verse 1, we can see there's anger. There was such an intense anger towards the tribes of Benjamin that this curse was sent out to anyone who let their daughter marry into the tribe of Benjamin. So they're basically saying, we're swearing in Mizpah, we're not going to let this happen. If you do this, it's going to be a problem, okay? There was anger, but was it the right thing to do? What do you think, Joshua?
What right thing to do?
Was it the right thing to do to stop Benjamites marrying their daughters?
Not really. They should, I don't know, because what they did was really inhuman. But,
Yeah.
God would give them a second chance, you know?
Okay.
So, yeah.
So would you, if you have a daughter,
No.
and a guy just came in and said, hey, guess what I just did? Would you...
Let me marry you.
Right? So you understand where they're coming from. However, there is this pull of being godly and this pull of being above what the world thinks about these things, and grace being a big deal, right? So I think that's the problem here. There is anger, there's justified anger towards what happened, but God is bigger than that. And we've all done things wrong in our lives. We've all fallen short, we've all sinned, we've all done things wrong, right? We all need Jesus. So it's a tough one. Already, tough place to start. But we see this place, Mizpah. Can anyone remember anything about Mizpah? It's mentioned a couple of places in the Bible. Let me tell you where it was. It was a city or fortress in Moab. That could have been where David hid his parents from Saul, when Saul was trying to kill him. Okay, it could be Mizpah in Gilead, where Jephthah lived. So we had a couple of Mizpahs so far. Or it is the Mizpah in Benjamin, which was near Jerusalem. Easy question. Which one is it? Which one are we talking
The
about?
Jerusalem one.
There you go. Okay. So in this case, yeah, it's the Mizpah of Benjamin. The Israelites gathered together to address the whole situation with the Levite's concubine. Remember that? And then this is where this has all come from. And it's good to see consequences of sin being punished. However, we're not the ones that are meant to punish because of that. That's down to God. That's down to God's judgment and God's righteousness. Because the one thing we know is that we've all fallen short. Yet again, we are all sinners. And if we are convicting people who are sinners, we're sinful people convicting sinners of sin. There's way too much sin in that sentence, okay? Second verse, we can see that all the people came to the house of God, abode there till even before God, lifted up their voices and wept. So they cried until they couldn't cry anymore. People of the house of God, the people of Bethel came. The Bethel was mentioned last week, was home of the Ark of the Covenant. Israel's high priest was there as well. We can see that in Judges 18:31. And there was weeping, a bitter weeping over the state of the tribe of Benjamin. That's a good thing to do. If you see your brothers going wrong, going astray, stepping out of line, it's a good thing to do, to be sad. But notice they didn't challenge. There was no like, hey, maybe you should do this instead, right? There was just, I'm going to cry about this. Does that make sense? It's kind of weird. You guys, you're close brothers, right? If you see Ufaz doing something wrong, are you just going to cry about it, or are you actually going to tell him he's doing something wrong?
Yeah, tell him.
Right.
I would just cry about it.
You just cry about it? We can tell that, bros. We can tell. You're that type of guy. But seriously, like actually as brothers and sisters, if we see a brother stepping out of line, a sister stepping out of line, the Bible tells us to help them see their ways. Help them to see the sin. But also it talks about, if you're pointing out someone else's sin, you've got to really recognize that you've probably got sin going on in your life too. Right? The speck in their eyes is the plank in the other. So if you're going to do that, be aware that it's going to kind of come and bite you back if that does happen. So let's go with verse 3. And said, O Lord God of Israel, why has this come to pass in Israel that there should be today one tribe lacking in Israel? Why is there a tribe lacking in Israel? They are God's chosen people. Why are they lacking, Joshua?
They got wrecked.
Because they got wrecked in battle, right?
Yeah.
How many people got killed?
Like 28,000.
How many were left?
Like
600.
600, right?
Wow.
And they ran and they hid, and they were like, we're going to not come out of our hidey holes until it's safe to come out now because we're scared of being killed and wiped out forever. So you have 600 people left. Why did that happen? Because they weren't living godly ways. They weren't living in God's way. They weren't sticking to righteousness. Instead, they were allowing this horrible sin. And not just sin, it was sexual sin, it was idolatry, it was homosexuality. All of it was sneaking in. Remember, they weren't after the concubine in 19. They didn't ask for the concubine. They asked for the dude. They did. They asked to know the guy. And that's the hard part, because you go, actually, this is just not even just a sexual sin. This is a homosexual sin. This is a wickedness of the heart to say that you can walk in and demand of anyone, and then for someone to be treated that way. It's horrible. So the tribe was punished, was almost wiped out from a huge tribe to maybe like 600 left. All because of the promises to not let any daughters marry, and because of the sin and the judgment that came with that. So we have no marriage, no babies. No babies equals the death of the people group, right? If everyone in America stopped having babies, America would last how long? Not long. You know, in 8 years' time, America would kaput. So it's that type of idea of saying, like, if you get rid of the babies, you get rid of a whole culture, a whole tribe, really. So the Benjamites weren't completely wiped out. We've already said there's like 600 left, okay? But the language here does say there is a huge danger of this happening, that it might actually happen. So verses 3 to 7 expresses mourning and concern for the survival of the tribe of Benjamin. But it's funny because, again, if you rewind one chapter, you have them wiping out each other. The Benjamites killing 40,000 Israelites, the Israelites killing 27,000 Benjamites. You know, and it's like, you rewind a couple of weeks or days maybe, and they've gone from bloodshed to lamenting over the state of the tribe. But the question is, why? why has this come to pass? Why is this the way that it is? And it's quite simple. It's human vengeance. Did they seek God's guidance in all of this? Can anyone remember this? In chapter 20, did they go to the temple? Did they offer some peace offerings and burnt offerings and say, God, help us, guide us, be with us? Did they say that? What's up?
They said that when they're about to attack, they asked the Lord if we should go, and then
Okay, and what did he say?
he said go, and then he did that like 2 times, and the last time he said, I'll give the victory to you,
Yeah.
and then they wrecked the bench.
Okay, so with God's hand and blessing in that, they were able to overcome, right? But the difference is, when it comes down to the judgment now, that vow, did they go before God before that and say, ask him about that? No. So that judgment was their own human judgment. God's called us to go to battle. God's called us to go and kill these guys, to almost wipe them out. He didn't say, on top of that, make sure they can't continue anymore. That's human judgment sneaking in there. That's human righteousness, justice really, from a human sense of, I think you deserve to get this instead of what God's saying. That's the flaw, right? God's version of this is gracious, it's just, and it's merciful. It's still punishment, but it's the understanding that we don't deserve that grace, we don't deserve that mercy, we don't even deserve that justice, because God is just so good to us. His judgment is correct, ours is not. That's the gist of that, okay? Make sense? Okay, section 2, verses 4 through 15, some solutions to sort this situation out, okay? It says this, and it came to pass on the morrow that the people rose early, built there an altar, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And the children of Israel said, who is there among all the tribes of Israel that came not up with the congregation unto the Lord? For they had made a great oath concerning him that came not up to the Lord to Mizpah, saying, he shall surely be put to death. And the children of Israel repented there for Benjamin their brother, and said, there is one tribe cut off from Israel this day. And how shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing that we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them out of our daughters to wives? And they said, what one is there of the tribes of Israel that came not up to Mizpah to the Lord? And behold, there came none to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. For the people were numbered, and behold, there were none of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead there. And the congregation sent thither 12,000 men of the valiantest, and commanded them, go and smite the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, with the women and the children. And this is the thing that ye shall do: ye shall utterly destroy every male and every woman that have lain by man. And they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins that had known no man by lying with any male, and they brought them unto the camp to Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. And the whole congregation sent some to speak to the children of Benjamin that were in the rock Rimmon, and to call peaceably unto them. And Benjamin came out at that time, and he gave them wives which they had saved alive of the women of Jabesh Gilead, and yet so they sufficed them not. Verse 15, and the people repented them for Benjamin, because that the Lord had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. So awesome, great opportunity, okay? You don't have any wives. Well, we said we couldn't give you wives. Oh, actually, there's one tribe not here, so we're going to go and kill them and steal their virgins, bring them back, and they can be your wives. But we see here, they're not asking for guidance. Did anything in those verses 4 to 7, did any of that there say anything about saying, God, I'm on my knees, I'm asking for help, I'm asking for guidance, I'm asking for wisdom here? No, it doesn't. It says they did the traditional thing, the religious thing of they woke up early, good for them, they're morning people, and they built an altar. So they did the religious thing. They know how to build altars. They've been doing it all the way through Exodus, all the way through Joshua, all the way through Judges. They've been building altars to remember what God has done. And here it is. They build an altar to bring burnt offerings and peace offerings to God. Religiosity, or whatever you want to call it, does not get you to heaven. Just coming to church and saying your prayers and umming and ahhing and, whatever it is, it doesn't get you to heaven. It's the relationship more than the religion itself. We can all believe in a religion of Jesus Christ, that he was a real person that walked this earth. There's plenty of proof. More proof than Julius Caesar that Jesus was alive and walked this earth. but it's actually about your relationship with Jesus Christ that truly matters. Okay? And that's the big difference here. They built an altar, but why? Why did they build an altar? They didn't ask for anything. Why would they build an altar? Anyone got any ideas?
No.
No? Doesn't tell you, does it?
Yeah, probably because their fathers used to do it.
So it's just tradition, just kind of religiousness. Hey, it seems like a real good idea to do this morning, right? What do you think, Scott? You got any extra there?
Maybe it's like they don't remember a lot of the things. Maybe it's like, well, we know that there's supposed to be something, and so let's just make it and cover all of our bases. You know, especially with all the idolatry that they're so stuck into.
Yeah.
They're like, well, we know that altars are a part of this. Let's go try to just throw them together.
I mean, typically you'd build an altar to do what? To interact with God, to remember something. Place those memory stones so that people can look and see what happened. Build an altar here because this is where God did. God saved us. God provided this. God, it's a remembrance, but it's also a worship possibility right there as well. They're not near Shiloh either.
It says peace offerings. So were they offering the peace offering to God or to the...
And that's the funny part, right? It just says they built an altar, but offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. I have a cross-section reference here for 2 Samuel 24-25. If someone wants to look that up, you can, and just check that out and see what that says. But the funny thing is, there's no addressing. They got on their knees and they worshipped and they offered a burnt offering to God, to Yahweh. Whereas other times it states that. It states that they made an altar to God or to to Yahweh so that they could actually use this as a worship point. It just seems strange to me that they do this, right? And there's no wisdom, nothing talked there. Anyone found 2 Samuel 24-25?
Yeah, it's talking about David
Go for it.
building an altar.
Give it a read.
And David built there an altar unto the Lord and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. So the Lord was entreated for the land, and the plague was stayed from Israel.
From Israel. So the difference, big difference here, right?
Yeah.
David built an altar to,
The Lord.
what does it say here? And it came to pass in the morning that the people rose early and built there an altar and gave peace offerings and burnt offerings. You're missing a couple of words there? To the Lord. Who we are doing these things to is important, right? So based off of this, I can't take away that they are building it to God. I can't say that they are because it's not written in the Bible that way. That cross-reference just shows me actually there's a difference to the terminology when it is built to God because it says to the Lord, whereas here it doesn't say that. Something for you to think about, and something to look like later on when you read through this again, if you do, look where it says, and they built an offering, because it usually tells you to who they build it to. It's important. It's important who we offer our worship to. It really is. So, verse 5, we can see the children of Israel asking this question, who is around us? They stop their mourning, they stop their wailing, their weeping, to confront another issue. When the Levites sent the concubines to the 12 tribes to explain what had done, there was a call throughout the land to get everyone together. You're all enraged against this, you're all upset, come together and we'll sort this thing out. And now they're saying, hey, any city that failed to respond to this, vengeance, justice will be made unto them. So this whole thing that whilst the war is happening, these other things are being sent out. If you don't get angry about this, we're angry at you. Doesn't that sound similar to this world? If you're not angry about how people are being treated because of their differences, we're now angry at you. The world's done this. The world does this every single day about gender, about sexuality, about whatever issue it is. They can spin this to say, if you don't agree, you're an enemy. And you might just be a neutral, but to them, if you don't agree, you're an enemy. If you're not here because you're angry about the concubine, then you must not agree with what we're standing for, and now you're an enemy. That's kind of what's being said here. Let me read verse 6. And the children of Israel repented them for Benjamin their brother, and said, there is one tribe cut off from Israel this day. So they repented for their brother, all the Benjamites that had been massacred in the previous chapter, all the women, all the children, all the cities that had been burnt, all the army except 600 killed. You can see there's just not much hope left. It is a messy situation to be. And with this vow to not allow marriage in, extinction again was on the horizon for this tribe. But you notice what happens here is they've kind of tried to sort this one big situation out with the Benjamites, and then they've turned on another brother. And this is what happens when you're not focusing on God. You will find issues everywhere if you are not in fellowship with believers and if you're not all looking at God. Some churches I've been to had the most terrible squabbles and all these arguments and falling out and splits. Because people will go, well, I believe this part of the Bible and you believe it differently. Well, clearly we're not on the same page. We can't be together. If you're all looking at Jesus, it doesn't matter. The truth comes out the way it is. But the difference is when we're not looking at Jesus and we're looking at other things, we can be very divided very quickly. Who are you looking at? Who are you looking at? So verse 7 tells us how do we save this tribe? How shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them of their daughters to wives? See, here's funny, right? They made this vow to the Lord. They're saying, hey, God, if we give our daughters to them, something like get rid of us. There's a swear. They're swearing on the Lord. That's a severe thing. That's an intense thing, right? Can anyone remember? Can anyone remember what happened with someone else swearing on the Lord? Hey, whoever comes out of my house next, I'll offer up to the Lord. Right? Right? What was his name? Japheth. Yeah, man. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But the thing is, swearing a vow to the Lord is a big deal. Making a promise to God is a big deal. That's not something that you can just go back on. If you're making that decision, you've got to stand on that decision. Going back and forth on that does not help. Puts some serious doubt in your head. But we've just made this promise that we can't give any of their daughters. How? So how do we save this tribe? They are our brothers. Yeah, they're the ones that went and did something bad. And yeah, well, maybe we punished them a bit too much. How do we help the situation now? You know? That's kind of where they're at. Verse 8, they have this great idea. Well, who's not here? Who didn't make it to the family reunion so we can pick on them, right? It's kind of crazy. It's like, what tribe didn't come to Mizpah? Who didn't come to the Lord, huh? Who didn't come here? Behold, there came from none to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. So they're real fast to work out who isn't there. They're like, oh, Jabesh Gilead, those are the guys, we should get rid of them. Jabesh Gilead was a city that lay within the territory of eastern Manasseh. It was around 15 miles east of the Jordan, and according to Josephus, was the capital of Gilead. Okay, so if you have a map at the back of your Bible, you should be able to see that and find that. The maps I tried to put on here were all really bad quality, so they were like super blurry. It wouldn't have helped. But if you have a map at the back of the Bible, check it out. So it seems that those that stayed back didn't take part in the crusades against Benjamin, right? But they still took part in the oath. So they're kind of half in, half out, right? They're not causing bloodshed, but they are causing the extinction of the tribe by not offering any wives. But we can see that with this vow, it isn't just an anger that can be tempered by the death of the soldiers, but actually it's the indiscriminate slaughter of the children and women as well. It was all fine to go, hey, there's the army, let's kill the army and then leave everyone else. But it's the fact that all the cities got killed in Benjamin, all burnt down, all the wives, all the children, everyone got destroyed, right? And that's the brutal part of this. In verse 9, we can tell that the reason why they knew that Jabesh Gilead wasn't there was because everyone was numbered. Like everyone was counted. You got your tribes? Yeah, we've got all 100 of us. We're all here. You got your own? Yeah, got ours. And remember, the one thing that we've learned through Judges, through Joshua, through all the Old Testament books that we've looked at, really good at keeping details of this stuff. You know, when they're dividing up the land in Joshua, hey, the land does this and it does that, and it has this many rocks here, and it has this many rivers and this many mountains, and they go, that's a really cool way to do it. But we know we can trust the details because they are so detailed. So when they say that everyone was numbered, we can trust that it was done correctly, and this is accurate. So they know that who's not there, okay? Because you weren't here, and you weren't here punishing the Benjamites with us. You weren't there for wars, you didn't participate, so now we're going to punish you for that. Again, if you don't accept my cause, you're an enemy of the cause, right? Numbers 31, 17 to 18 tells us of another account when there was a war and an almost obliteration of people, except an age group, the young girls who have not known a man. This is a familiar thing, okay? And maybe this is the same type of situation where they could provide for Benjamin with a group of young ladies who had kept themselves sexually pure. So they're basically going into cities and they're going, we need virgins. We can't have people who've already been tied to other people. We need virgins. So they send out, verse 10, they send out 12,000 valiant men. Valiant men. So what does that mean? What's valiant mean? Go for it.
They know how to fight.
They know how to fight. These are the top dogs. These are the champions, right? These are men of valor. These guys are known their knowledge. They have wisdom in war. These guys aren't people to mess around with. They're going to walk in and put you to the sword because they have done it before. No hesitation. They know what they're doing. They send 12,000 valiant men to go and do this job. Go and kill the inhabitants with the edge of the sword, along with the women and children. Just another excuse for violence, right? You guys aren't here, so we're just going to kill you. That's a weird family. It's a weird family, right? I'm sorry we missed Thanksgiving. Now you're dead. But we can see there's this weird moment. This is really, really weird moment, okay? There's been repenting for their tribe, for their brother tribe. So there's like this, I'm so sorry. And there's been weeping, oh, I'm so sad. And now there is suddenly aggression again. These guys are being led by emotion. They're being led by their hearts instead of God. And when you get led by emotion, you get led astray because we know that actually your heart will pull you in different directions. What's the verse we've been using for that from Jeremiah? Can anyone remember?
Mm-hmm.
You got it?
Oh yeah, 17:9.
What does it say?
The heart is incredibly wicked, incurably ill. Who can know it?
And who can know it? Incredibly wicked, incurably ill. It's wicked. It will lead you astray. That's why you don't follow your heart. Okay? And that's the whole point of this. There is a lot of emotion going in here. A lot of emotion. And these guys are going, oh, whoa, these guys aren't here. Let's go get them. And we go punish them for this and go punish them for that. And you must think like later on they might sit down and be like, did we get a little bit out of hand there? Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. So they have this assembly. They repent, they lament for the tribe of Benjamin. But again, is there anything saying they ask God for a solution here? No? You sure?
Yep.
Yeah. Nothing. No, hey, we're going to repent and say sorry for what happened here. God, help us with what's going to happen next. God, we're so sorry. We're so sorry. Help us rebuild this tribe. Bless your people again. Protect your people. No, none of that. None of that. Instead, they go, you know what? Who's not here? Go and kill them and steal their virgins. So we have some more sin going on here. Some more murder going to happen. Some more war. And then some kidnapping. Why not? Right? Imagine standing for something, being a people of God, chosen people of God, of Israel, but never actually asking God for direction. You've been called this. You've been led out of Exodus, out of slavery, through the wilderness, into the promised land. You've been given the promised land. You have the land now. And now you're turning on each other because actually you've taken your eyes off of God. That tells you that no one's safe. No one's safe from sin. No one is safe. Verse 11, and this is the thing that you shall do. You shall utterly destroy every male and every woman that have lain by man. There is this weird act that happens now, okay? Anyone remember in Joshua we spoke of a word, cherem? It's a possession of God. Something that is a possession of God, or taken to be possessed by God. So sometimes it would be like riches, and you say, I call this riches cherem, and you take it to the temple. We say this food is cherem, so you take it and you sacrifice it to God, or this animal is cherem, or this people group will be my priests, they're cherem, they're possessions of God. That's what happens there, okay? And this is the same style that we can see in Joshua 6:17. People taking stuff as property for God, priests taking it. So we see this, And we see also, like, when people would say cherem over a people group or a city, what that would usually mean is the complete annihilation of the city and the people inside. So it wasn't keeping it, it was killing it. It was wiping it out. God instructed Moses to do this in the land of Canaan. Numbers 21, 1 through 3, Deuteronomy 7, 2, Deuteronomy 9, 5, 13, 15, and 20, 17, okay? And then we see Joshua charged with the same instructions. Joshua 6, 18, 21, 8, 26, 10, 28 to 40, and 11, 11 to 21. You can all look at those up when I get the video done. You can check all the references and go and check them out yourself there. But the point is, cherem was not unique in this situation. It's happened before. So this command to go in and utterly destroy is something they know. It's something they would have heard about before. Go in and kill everything that is impure, unclean, not right. Get rid of them. Verse 12, they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins that have known no man by lying with any male, and they brought them into the camp to Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. So, they go in there, they kill everything, they wipe them all out, and they find 400 virgins. Go, great, you're going to be wives for Benjamites. We're bringing you home. They took them, and they took them to Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. In verse 13, the whole congregation sent some to speak to the children of Benjamin who were hiding out in some rock, scared. Right? We're almost wiped out. We're just going to chill in this cave for a little while. We'll lie low until everyone just calms down. Then you hear a guy come up and, hey, you're safe. You can come out now. And I'm like, oh, great, let's go. So they do. They send some people, and it's like a peace message. Come on out. The fighting's over. You're safe now. Come on out. They call peaceably unto them. Messages were sent out to give word to Benjamin that there is no longer a threat to that tribe. Verse 14, we can read that they came out and they were given wives. But how many Benjamites were there again?
600.
Oh, awkward.
There's 200.
That's real awkward, right? So the remaining tribe of Benjamin came out at that time, out of their little rock place, and were like, oh, this sunlight's real bright. They came out. They went to their tribal inheritance, right back to their land, and they were given wives that they were from Jabesh Gilead. And the Israelites had only been able to find 400 virgins, so there's 600 Benjamites, there's 200 people who haven't got wives. But there was a lifeline again. There's a glimmer of hope here, right? And then we go to 15, and we read that again the people repented again for Benjamin. Repentance. Repentance is a big deal. Because there's now this lifeline here. But does it say that? Does it say repentance because of the life that has been brought by God, or what? What does it say?
Lord has made void in the tribes of Israel.
So what does that mean? Anyone got any ideas?
Mine says breach.
Yeah, what do you think it means?
A hole.
A hole?
A hole, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you breach like a barricade, what does that mean?
You like blow a hole in it.
Right.
Destroyed it.
Yeah, and you like managed to get behind the walls. You meant something has breached the tribes
You
here.
got through it.
So what is it?
The tribes of Israel got breached.
By what?
By themselves.
By what?
By what?
By what?
I don't know.
What do you reckon?
Lord.
Oh, right. Is it because the Lord has made
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the hard part about this is we looking at, the obvious answer you could turn around and say is sin. Sin's breached the hearts of Israel. And you're like, that's correct. But actually in this situation, the Lord made a breach here. The Lord blessed them in that battle to wipe out the Benjamites to a certain number. So the Lord was in control. There hasn't been a part that God isn't in control. It might seem crazy, it might seem all out of place, but God is still in control. I think that's pretty encouraging when you can see darkness and sickness and sin everywhere, but you can know that God's still in control. All right, last section, section 3, the sinful solution, 16 through 25, says this: Then the elders of the congregation said, how shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? And they said, there must be an inheritance for them that be escaped of Benjamin, that a tribe be not destroyed out of Israel. Howbeit we may not give them wives of our daughters, for the children of Israel have sworn, saying, Cursed be he that giveth a wife to Benjamin. Then he said, Behold, there is a feast of the Lord in Shiloh yearly in a place which is on the north side of Bethel, on the east side of the highway that goeth up from Bethel to Shechem, and on the south of Lebanon. Therefore they commanded the children of Benjamin, saying, Go and lie in wait in the vineyards, and see, and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance and dances, then come ye out of the vineyards, and catch you every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. Come on. And it shall be, when their fathers or their brethren came unto us to complain, that we will say unto them, Be favourable unto them for our sakes, because we reserve not to each man his wife in the war, for ye did not give unto them at this time, that ye should be guilty. And the children of Benjamin did so, and took them wives according to the numbers of them that danced, who they caught. And they went and returned to their inheritance, and repaired the cities, and dwelt in them. And the children of Israel departed thence at this time, every man to his tribe and to his family, and they went out from thence, every man to his inheritance. And in those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Boy, what a way to end the chapter of Judges, right? The whole book. The elders of the congregation take the time to address the situation that 200 guys haven't got ladies. What are we going to do? You killed all the other people, didn't you? That was a bit silly, wasn't it? We went and killed everyone, and they were like, oh, now we're down a couple hundred. There were some women spared, but it wasn't enough, and now there's a need, right? Verse 17, they talk about this inheritance. There must be something somewhere. There must be some wives somewhere. What a desperation. You know? But oh man, where are they? And suddenly out of this new desperation is a new act of sinfulness. Just is staggering to me. That there's been repentance, there's been lamenting, there's been weeping until they were sore. There's been, let's go send 12,000 valiant men to go and kill people. There's been taking of other people's virgins, their daughters, it's ripped away from them and given to this tribe. And now, we're here. Where else can we steal some wives from so that Benjamin doesn't just get wiped out? It just blows my mind. Verse 18, we see this returning issue of we didn't give them enough daughters. We didn't give them enough of the wives so that it can be okay again. And then they revisit that curse. Curse be anyone who gives a daughter to Benjamin, right? So they have this issue, and they think about this swearing of an oath. Back in Judges 11, Jephthah made the same promise, remember? Anyone who comes out of my house will be the Lord's, and I'll offer up as a burnt offering. That's why we say that the daughter got burned, because it says in 11 that she got burned. Grace, you're wrong, and you know it. Oaths and promises and vows your word is a very powerful thing. Your word is a very powerful thing. If you are a man of your word, that means people trust you. If you're a person of your word, that means you are reliable, that you're consistent, that you tell the truth, that you are around, you're truthful, you're a good person. If you break that, you'll notice how people start not trusting you as much. I don't think you're going to keep your word. Why would I allow you close to me? And that's the big difference here. Your word is powerful. These promises are powerful. Okay? Verse 19, they get told about this feast. This blows my mind again. Anyone got any ideas what this feast is?
No.
There's a feast in Shiloh to the Lord. What's Shiloh?
Is where the temple is.
So there's a feast at the temple of God, right? At the temple of God. And many people will be going to this feast. And this sin pops up. This is where you should take your wives from. This is perfect. Potentially, this feast is one of the 3 great Jewish feasts that happen every year. Okay? It could be Passover, it could be the fruits, it could be, can't remember the other one. Either way, not Thanksgiving. But we can find those feasts in Exodus 23, 14 through 17. But this is a feast to Yahweh. This is a feast to God. And they're saying, hey, whilst they're feasting and worshipping God, go hide out in the vineyards. Go lay low and wait until those dancers come out, those virgin dancers. And when they come out, just run over and grab you a wife and get out of there. What? You're the nation of Israel. It just blows my mind again. So they go to the east side of the highway. This is the exact site of the place for the Benjamins, so they know exactly where they're going. These guys know where this feast is going to be held. Next few verses, 20, 21, 22-ish, real strange. Instructions to get these ladies to kidnap these women, because nothing says, come be my wife, like kidnapping someone as they worship God. Right? It's weird. It's so weird. Don't do that. All right? So the Benjamites take their place. They lie low in the vineyard. They wait for the dancers to come out and start dancing their dance. And those dances would have been traditional worshipping dances of God. It would have been stories through dance about how they were saved from the Exodus. It would have been stories of how God's provided over the years. It would have been stories of all these things through dance and a celebration of how good God is. And then out of there, they go, oh look, they're dancing. Let's go get our wives. No one see a problem with this? Verse 21, waits. Wait until the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance and dances, and then come out of the vineyards and catch you, every man of you, a wife. Go and catch a wife. Go and kidnap a wife.
What tribe are the daughters of Shiloh from?
Well, what's Shiloh? We just said it. What was it?
That's where the temple's at.
So if they're part of the temple,
Levi?
Levites. So if the temple priests, if they're coming out and dancing, chances are they would have been Levites. So how... Even worse, right? They're stealing from the priest line that God's ordained and said, you don't get a patch of land. All the other tribes have land. You get to live at my temple. You get to live at the house of God. You get to be here. And the other Israelites are like, those are the guys you should steal from. Those are the ones, kidnap those women. It makes no sense to me.
That's the only other group that didn't show up to fight.
Right? Well, yeah. Yeah.
You would think it would start another war.
You think so? And I don't understand how it didn't. Okay? And maybe it's because the Levites didn't think that way. But guess who the Levites were close to? God. They were in the temple. They were talking to him every day. They had a different way to live. But the one with the concubine, right? And actually, if all of that stems back to that guy with the concubine. So you kind of think, man, there's full circle effect coming in here. So this dance would have been done as part of an observation, part of a religious occasion, a religious feast. And it would have been an honor to have your daughter dance in these things. And here's the thing, like, you're missing a wife? Why not go and kidnap one? You know, why not I go and do it? Think about how easy this could have been. Truly, how easy this could have been if the other tribes had just owned up and said, we made a vow against you to God to not give you any wives. I'm really sorry about that. Would 400 be okay? Yeah, you know? Or maybe they could talk to God about it and see if he could be okay with them going back on their vow. Who knows? I think God would have been gracious in that situation. But there was no ask, right? There was no returning to that. Verse 22, they have this plan. When the fathers or the brethren come to us to complain, we'll say unto them, be favorable unto them for our sakes, because we reserve not each man his wife in the war, for ye did not give unto them at this time, and that ye should be guilty. Hey, we didn't save their wives in war, we killed everyone. And that's kind of your fault too. Wait, what? How does that make sense? Does that make sense to you guys? No? But the funny thing is, the leaders of Israel are saying, there's an issue here, the fathers are going to come and complain because this is not right. But here's what we're going to say. We've already got our excuses lined up. We're already ready to go. If they say this, I'm going to say this. If they say this, I'm going to say this. I'm going to keep firing back and forth until someone backs down, and I'm not going to be the one backing down. I want my wife. This is bad, guys. This is real bad. They got this excuse that they will deliver to be kind of exempt from the earlier vow. And with this in mind, we can learn that the instructions to the tribe of Benjamin was not given or even told to the men of Shiloh. This wasn't shared. This wasn't public knowledge. This was just go and do it. Just go and do it. And when they come and complain, we're not going to ask for permission, we're just going to say sorry afterwards. Those are people in the world like that, right? The ones who ask for permission, and then they could mess up, and then they'll be like, I'm sorry, but you're like, hey, I'm the one that let you do it. All of the people that go and do it, and then they come to you and be like, I messed up, and you're like, why did you even do it? If you ask for permission, sometimes you have to say sorry. If you don't, majority of times you have to say sorry for that stuff. Verse 23, Benjamin did exactly what was said. They took their wives according to their number, so at least they didn't get extra wives, they got 200 extra wives, right? Of them that danced, whom they caught, and they went and returned to their inheritance, repaired the cities, and dwelt in them. So they married them, they kidnapped them, they married them, took them back to their inheritance, repaired the cities that were destroyed in the war, and they stayed there, they lived there. Returning home to the burnt, destroyed cities of all the dead that were massacred in the last chapter. That can't be too awkward, right? With your brand new wife. Kidnapped wife. It's weird. It's weird. Verse 24. When the children of Israel departed thence at the time, every man to his tribe and to his family, they went out thence, every man to his inheritance. Everyone was happy. It seems like right now it's just like, oh, cool, that's all done. It staggers me, the lack of talking to God still. The lack of talking to God. Cool, that situation is all done. No one's going to have to talk about kidnapping or death or murder or anything like that. Let's just carry on with our lives because we're happy with it. In verse 25, we can realize the reason for this. In those days, there was no king in Israel. And every man did that which was right in his own eyes. That's not something that we've read before, right? Mm-hmm. Judges 17:6, Judges 18:1, Judges 19:1. We've read this four times so far, right? And I think that's the part we see this. The people once again did what they wanted to do. They didn't do what God asked them to do. This familiar return of the narrative of the state of the Israelites is a depressing one. The Israelites did evil before Yahweh, or just did what they thought was right in their own minds. And this expression again highlights the anarchy that rose up without a king in Israel, without someone leading the charge, without someone pointing them to God. This kind of moral and political and social, spiritual chaos could only happen without a recognized king. But again, remember when they asked for a king later on in Samuel, what happens? This stuff happens again. Because they don't choose to follow God, they choose to follow a human. If you're not following God, there's going to be these consistent problems throughout. A final overview of this book of Judges, we can see the 400 years, the year period, was marked by radical individualism, not togetherness. It was one bad mistake by one person that affected many. One act of idolatry worship in a temple built for Baal this and Baal that affected a whole nation. You know, big wars happening and collecting up all the gold and melting it down to make it into an ephod that we can worship now. And you go, no, hold on, you're doing so great, until individualism tore apart the nation of Israel and introduced sin and idolatry. And that's what the book of Judges tells us here. Of people who reject the standard of God's word and law and instead accept the individual standard of what was right in their own eyes. It's kind of my overview of the book of Judges, you know. So, 3 final thoughts for you here. First one, the comparison between this world and the book of Judges. The state of the world right now and the state of Judges, the book of the nation of Israel, it is similar, right? People always say to me, oh, America, built by God, blessed by God. I'm like, oh, that's a really cool statement. Do you go to church? Why would I go to church? You're like, well, built by God, blessed by God, right? And that's the thing, they're leaderless. Israel was leaderless because they were choosing to follow their own place. Right now, America is leaderless without God at the helm, without God doing what he's meant to be doing. The world is leaderless without God leading. We have a choice to return back to God or to choose destruction, individualism, sin being pushed into everywhere. The rejection of God from school and from state and from our lives affects everyone. The further we get from God, the darker the world gets. Second thought, sin does not cover up sin. The wiping out of the Benjamites, when or the murder and everything like that, and ended up saying, hey, go and steal these guys whilst we kill this people group, that didn't cover up that sin. That didn't stop that. That didn't change that. It just added on top of the pile. You know, it all got built up, and then you realize why. It's because no one did anything according to God, but according to their own ways. We need to remember that only God can save. Only God forgives. Only God can do good. We can try to be like God and try to live that way, but we aren't good people. We need Jesus to help with that. We are sinners. We need to be saved. We need God to take the sin off of our shoulders so that we don't keep piling that stuff up, right? Last one here. Who are you choosing as king in your life? Throughout Judges, we can see that the Israelites fall away from God, and that's because they didn't choose God as their king. They wanted a judge, they wanted this person, they wanted that. I want to be in charge. Who are you choosing as king in your life? It's real important we know who God is and that we address him as king, as Lord, as Savior, and we want to live that way. The book of Judges is a real daunting book to a view of a world that is without God. That gets glimpses of God's salvation and redemption and love and blessing and mercy and grace, even when they don't deserve it because they've fallen so far away. That tells you the goodness of God, that doesn't tell you the goodness of man. The desires of our hearts are evil. The desire of God is goodness. Who are you choosing as king in your life?